Tonight, Monday Night Raw airs once again inside the WWE Thunderdome at the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. It's night 2 of the WWE draft. Of course, night 1 took place this past Friday night on SmackDown, so we will have more draft picks, more people going from Raw to SmackDown and SmackDown to Raw. We also just had a bit of news recently. I'll do a separate video on it probably tomorrow at this point, but the news is coming out that PW Insider has reported that WWE has extended their residency at the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. So we're going to be seeing more of the WWE Thunderdome at least until the end of November. They've extended it for 1 month. It was due to expire on October 31st, but now WWE has extended it for a further month. It's the right call. It's too early to tour, even in the state of Florida. It's way too early to tour, and especially considering that it's the winter months now, and we've seen rises in cases across, obviously over here in the UK, but especially in the United States. So absolutely the right call, but we're not going to talk about that. Easy for me to say in this video. What we are going to talk about is Kevin Owens versus Aleister Black in a no disqualification match. So it looks like tonight on Raw we're going to finally see the blow off or the final of the end, whatever you want to call it, of this feud between Aleister Black and Kevin Owens. At least that's the way it looks like. Obviously, Kevin Owens last Friday night on SmackDown had a match against The Fiend in which he lost. Although I will say it's probably, and I think a lot of people have been saying this, it's probably that match between Kevin Owens and The Fiend on SmackDown is arguably The Fiend's best match that he's had since Bray Wyatt has transformed into this Firefly Funhouse and The Fiend gimmick. I think you look at the matches that The Fiend's had so far in this run, whether it's against Finn Balor or Daniel Bryan. His matches against Daniel Bryan, particularly that match at the Royal Rumble, was good. Goldberg, less said about that the better. The match against John Cena wasn't a match, really. The Fiend's match against Braun Strowman at SummerSlam I thought was okay, but the Triple Threat match again was okay. But that match between The Fiend and Kevin Owens on Friday on SmackDown I thought was fantastic. I enjoyed the stunner into the mandible claw spot. Obviously, I really enjoyed the ending where The Fiend and Alexa Bliss sort of stared into each other's eyes as SmackDown went off the air. I'm really enjoying that Fiend and Alexa Bliss storyline. I think there's so much to that, so much to unpack. It is the Joker and Harley Quinn of WWE, as I've mentioned several times, so I'm really excited to see where that one's going. But Kevin Owens is in a bit of a weird situation right now because he's involved in 2 feuds. He's involved in that feud with The Fiend and Alexa Bliss, but he's also involved in this feud with Aleister Black on Raw. So as I mentioned, this is why I think this will be the final match in this feud, because I think they're trying to tie this feud up quickly. Aleister Black recently did an interview and he stated that he spoke about obviously a lot of changes that are coming to his or have come to his character after he had that eye injury by Seth Rollins, and then those reports came out that Vince McMahon, he's not sure what it is with Aleister Black, or he thinks there's something that needs to be changed, or he just thinks he's missing something. Aleister Black revealed that all the changes that we've seen so far, and we've seen quite a few, we've seen Aleister Black change his entrance music, which is a shame, since his old entrance music was absolutely fantastic. That Root of All Evil song is brilliant, but it's yet another example of the CFO's cull in WWE, whereby, by all accounts, WWE and the CFOs, obviously they haven't been working together for a while now, but CFOs signed a bad deal, or WWE signed a bad deal with the CFOs, and that there's a large amount of royalties they have to pay out every time they play the song and they put it on the network, and WWE isn't happy with that. Hence a lot of songs disappearing that were produced by the CFOs, Seth Rollins, Keith Lee, Apollo Crews, now Aleister Black as well. But Aleister Black said, in addition to that change and the change in his appearance, obviously he wears the black contact lens in the eye that was injured by Seth Rollins. He now doesn't compete in trunks, he competes in tights. He said that's only about 20% of the change to his character that we've seen so far. So perhaps tonight also on Raw, we'll see further changes to Aleister Black's character, which I'm interested in. I think the reaction so far that it's received, Aleister Black's character change, has been a bit of a negative reaction, to be honest. I think a lot of people were very reactionary to the Aleister Black theme song change. I don't think the theme is that bad at all. Obviously, I think the theme was very, very good, but look, business is business at the end of the day. It's unfortunately WWE's fault. They signed a bad deal, and if they feel like they need to change that, then they need to change that. But I don't think the replacement theme is this bad. I think the replacement theme for Keith Lee is far worse. Far worse. So I don't think this theme for Aleister Black isn't that bad at all. And if you're a heel, should your music be getting sung along to by the crowd anyway. If there was one there, I don't know. So I don't have a massive problem with that. I don't have a problem with Aleister Black changing his ring attire or anything like that. They are cosmetic elements and they are important, but I think some people are overstating how important they really are. So look, if it means Aleister Black gets pushed more and he's more featured on Raw, then I'm totally fine with that. I'm totally fine with that because he just hasn't been. Ever since he was called up to the main roster in 2019, he's been doing a whole lot of nothing. Apart from sitting in rooms, knocking on doors, and his most meaningful feud was against Murphy. And they had some fantastic matches, but it's Murphy is the one that came out of that feud and is doing things of substance with Seth Rollins. Aleister Black has been largely sitting on the sidelines and been doing a whole lot of nothing. And this is a guy that's a former NXT champion. He did fantastic work in NXT. A lot of people during his time in NXT thought he was going to be a really big deal in WWE, myself included. I thought, man, this guy can be, no one's going to be The Undertaker, of course, but I thought he can be a modern day version or something of that ilk, and it hasn't worked out. Whether that's because Vince McMahon doesn't get Aleister Black's character, which I think that's the issue with him right there, is one thing, but if changes are coming to the character, that means Vince McMahon is invested in those changes, which means that Aleister Black will get TV time and he will be hopefully getting more featured into storylines going forward on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown for that matter, wherever he's drafted, because of course you have to factor into this one that Kevin Owens and Aleister Black, they're in the draft pool for night 2, so these are two guys that could potentially either be on Raw or SmackDown come the end of the night. Again, another reason why I think this will be the final match in the feud, because I think one of these guys is going to go to SmackDown. At this point of time, I don't know who that would be. I would probably edge a guess towards Aleister Black. The reason I say that is because I think Bray Wyatt is going to be drafted to Monday Night Raw. If that is the case, I don't see why you would have Kevin Owens' two rivals on the brand, and I think Aleister Black would move over to SmackDown. So, and he would replace the sort of darker, weirder gimmick of the Fiend and Bray Wyatt. So I think that makes a lot of sense. So again, I think this is going to be the final match in the feud. As far as Kevin Owens goes, obviously his feud with the Fiend, I said before that I thought it would be a one and done thing. Given that I think Bray Wyatt is going to be drafted to Raw and The Fiend therefore comes to Raw with him, I would suspect that the feud with The Fiend isn't over just yet, which is really interesting. I think Kevin Owens being involved with someone like The Fiend is fantastic because Kevin Owens, as I mentioned on Raw, a bit like Aleister Black, has been doing a whole lot of nothing. 2020 hasn't been a really kind year to the career of Kevin Owens, if I'm going to be brutally honest here, because you look at the start of this year, he had that feud with Seth Rollins that went on forever. I mean, it did go on forever. It was good at points and good at moments, but it did go on for way too long. They had the match at WrestleMania. He had the WrestleMania moment, dived off the WrestleMania sign, fantastic. And then after that feud with Seth Rollins finished, again, he disappeared for a while, had an ankle injury, then was among the many not to compete during parts of the pandemic because he was uncomfortable. Kevin Owens, of course, is credited for changing Vince McMahon's mind on mask wearing. He was the one that actually caused Vince McMahon to implement a mask policy, so credit to Kevin Owens for that. But he hasn't been really involved in much. He was doing commentary at SummerSlam on a Street Profits match. That's not what Kevin Owens should be doing. And I enjoy the KO show segments, but he's much better and much more worthwhile than just a talk show host. He really is worth much more than that. So potentially, we spoke about changes to Aleister Black's character ongoing, and we've seen changes to Aleister Black's character in the past few weeks on Raw, but we could also see changes to Kevin Owens' character too. Because you have to remember, after that match against The Fiend on SmackDown, everyone that The Fiend touches, they change, right? It's been the case ad nauseum at this point. Finn Balor faced The Fiend, turned heel, went to NXT. You had Daniel Bryan change. He had his hair all cut off. He changed. Seth Rollins faced the Fiend, and now he's the Monday Night Messiah or the Friday Night Messiah, whatever you want to call him. So everyone The Fiend touches, they change. Braun Strowman, he changed drastically from a face to a heel. He lost his hair too. And Kevin Owens could be the latest to change. Of course, Alexa Bliss arguably is one of the biggest changes as well. The Fiend locked the mandible claw in on her, and now she's a heel and she's aligned with The Fiend. So what is the change going to be for Kevin Owens? We'll have to wait and see. I'm still holding out hope that this change of Kevin Owens will involve him going back to NXT. Can you imagine seeing Kevin Owens compete inside the Capitol Wrestling Center? I think that'll be fantastic. Now, I've mentioned before about Kevin Owens going back to NXT. I only want him to go back to NXT if he's not involved in anything on Raw or SmackDown. I do think, obviously, Kevin Owens is a massive asset to whatever show he's on. The reason I think there's been such call for KO to go back to NXT in the last 18 months or so is because he hasn't been doing much of substance on Raw and SmackDown. If he's featured in, I don't think anyone would say, oh, we want to see him go back to NXT. If he's involved in the main event of Raw, if he's involved in the main event of SmackDown, then no one's going to say, oh, he needs to go back to NXT. I think the reason this groundswell of momentum and people wanting to see Kevin Owens go back in NXT is because he hasn't been doing much of anything on Raw or SmackDown. So maybe The Fiend might change Kevin Owens to the point that he goes back to NXT. I would love to see that. Of course, NXT isn't involved in the draft, which is disappointing because, I don't know, I just think it would have been a fantastic addition to the draft. I think a lot of people weren't so excited about seeing NXT stars go to Raw or SmackDown. I think what would have been so exciting about having NXT involved in the draft would be that you can see Raw or SmackDown stars go to NXT. Stars like Kevin Owens that drastically need it, or stars even like Aleister Black that drastically need it and previously had success in NXT, but that's not the case because NXT, of course, isn't involved. So this feud, to be honest, with Kevin Owens and Aleister Black, it's been a quick one. There have been some bright moments. I thought the initial Aleister Black turn on the KO show was well done, and I enjoyed that. Again, I don't really have a problem with a lot of the Aleister Black changes we've seen in recent weeks, as long as it means he's more featured in on Monday Night Raw. Really don't have a problem with that. I enjoyed their matches or fights that they had on Raw Underground. I thought elements of that were good. Elements of that I really didn't like. I didn't like the idea of a shoot fight being stopped because they go to commercial. Let's see if the shoot fights still continue when we go back. I mean, talk about killing the gimmick. And then after that, they fought for 3 segments and they both get squashed by Dabba-Kato. I thought that was ridiculous as well. So there was a lot of elements of this feud, as brief as it has been, that I didn't like, but there have been elements that I do like. Given that this is a no disqualification match, I'm sure that we can expect weapons and some sort of plunder. Given that, again, it is a draft night, I wouldn't be surprised if the ending of this match sees a distraction from The Fiend or even Bray Wyatt and Aleister Black gets the victory. If I had to go for a prediction for this match, I would probably say I think Aleister Black wins. And the reason I say that is because I think if you're going to weigh up who does a win help more here, I know Kevin Owens just lost on SmackDown, but coming off of a match against The Fiend, it would make sense for Kevin Owens to be distracted. It would make sense for Kevin Owens to be weak. And you can have Bray Wyatt once again appear on the Titantron inside the Firefly Funhouse, distract Kevin Owens, and Aleister Black gets the Black Mass, gets the victory, gets a bit of momentum, especially for this new character. And then he moves over to SmackDown in the draft. I think that makes the most sense here. Now, as I mentioned, Aleister Black, Kevin Owens, Bray Wyatt, and Alexa Bliss, they're all in the draft pool for tonight's show. As I mentioned, if I'm going to go with anyone to go to SmackDown, I would go with Aleister Black. I think Kevin Owens will stay on Raw. I think Bray Wyatt will move to Raw. And in addition to Bray Wyatt moving to Raw, I think Alexa Bliss, therefore, will move to Raw with The Fiend too. So this is going to be a really interesting night, Obviously, the second night of the draft. There have been some additions to the draft pool. We will do a separate draft preview on the channel, so be sure to keep an eye out for that as well. But an interesting one, and I think this match will be a lot of fun. Kevin Owens in his matches recently have been fantastic, and again, I think the Aleister Black Kevin Owens feud, as brief as it has been, it's had its moments, some good, some bad. But I think it looks like Kevin Owens is going to transition into a full-blown feud with Bray Wyatt and The Fiend going forward, which leaves no room for Aleister Black. Therefore, I think this newer, darker, different version of Aleister Black with a black eye and the tights and the new music, I think that all moves over to SmackDown in the process. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm really excited for this one. But I think Aleister Black is going to leave here victorious. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. So what are your thoughts on the Aleister Black versus Kevin Owens match tonight on Monday Night Raw? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys here on the channel. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button as well. Really just help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get to people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to WrestleNews 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. We're closing in very, very quickly on 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't already, I think we're about 30 subscribers away or so from that magic 1,000 number. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe. If you have subscribed already, just know that I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.